Back to From the Shed End. What a 24 hours we've had as Chelsea fans. Wow, what a way to start another video. Before we get into the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and let us know your thoughts in the comments as well. But let's start with the big news that came out this morning, a couple of hours ago. Thomas Tuchel and Chelsea have mutually agreed to terminate his contract. Whether that means he's been sacked or he's left and walked away from the club is another story for another day. But it kind of came out of the blue. But if you've been following these videos on here, you'll have definitely heard me say on here a number of times. Even in the last video, I think I said, you know, Thomas Tuchel is on borrowed time. He's literally, as a Chelsea manager, you're constantly on borrowed time. The moment you sign up for the club, the timer starts and you're literally on borrowed time. So let's try and dissect it in this video. Let's try and get into that. Let's also talk about Dinamo Zagreb, who played brilliantly yesterday against us in the Champions League as well. We'll get onto that later. But let's talk about Thomas Tuchel, the big story that's obviously covering news and Twitter feeds everywhere across the country. It's a strange one. Let's try and dissect it. So my own opinions, obviously Theo isn't here at the moment. He's flying back from Mexico, so we're definitely going to talk about this on the podcast. But I just think, for me personally, I think this has been a situation that's been bubbling away with Thomas Tuchel for some time now. I think even you can go back to pre-season, potentially the back end of last season. There's been loads that he's had to deal with. So let's try and do good and bad if we can do that. But I think in terms of the bad, you know, you think about the COVID seasons. Yes, other managers, all managers in the Premier League had to deal with that. But in terms of the congestion of fixtures that we had to deal with, the sanctions that Roman Abramovich had whilst trying to sell the club, that obviously impacted Thomas Tuchel, uncertainty around his own future, some of the players' futures, Antonio Rudiger, Christensen, you know, loads of things were happening at the back end of last season. And I think that obviously had a massive effect in terms of transfer strategy, and how we done that once the ownership was changed to Todd Boehly. But I do think the writings were on the wall. It was clear as day. You know, you look back to some of the results that we had the back end of last season. I think it was in April, and you know, they weren't good. You know, they were sort of mixed, mediocre performances from us, and you know, we obviously went out, lost on penalties, I think, to 2 finals, FA Cup, Carabao Cup as well. We did get the top 4, but you do look at just the way that we started this season, and it just didn't seem like we were there. There was no cohesion, no fluidity, the stability of the club. Obviously, the Lukaku drama situation that happened as well hasn't helped Thomas Tuchel when you look back on it now. And obviously, with every sacking becomes every rumour, every, you know, reason or reasons for why Thomas Tuchel was sacked. And I just think it's one of those ones where, obviously, over time, we'll probably hear the real reasons as to why he was sacked. But the writings have been, it's been there. It's been happening in the background. You look at Hakim Ziyech, Timo Werner, Christian Pulisic, you know, players, agents, or the dad of Christian Pulisic coming out and talking against Thomas Tuchel, and, you know, Hakim Ziyech flying to Amsterdam to try and get the move. Marcos Alonso wanting to leave to go to Barcelona. Cesar Spilicueta wanting to go to Barcelona. You know, as I mentioned, Lukaku, the fact he was talking to Inter Milan for the whole duration of his time at Chelsea, wanting to keep Lukaku as well for this season, just for me never made any sense. I think rightfully had to leave the club, and there were discussions, I think, with Todd Boehly and Thomas Tuchel that he wanted to keep Lukaku for another season. And you know, you have to think, how did those conversations go down with the owner, your new boss, your new, you know, the owner of the club? You know, Todd Boehly, a clear you know, favourite who wanted to sign, you know, Cristiano Ronaldo. He clearly told us that a number of occasions that there was meetings ongoing with Ronaldo's agent, and you know, Tuchel almost shutting down the fact he didn't want Ronaldo at the club, whether that's the right reason or the wrong reason. But you look now and you think about how we played, especially last night, especially against Leeds, Southampton, you know, all these games, and you look back and you think to how we played, hasn't been good enough. You know, the performances have not been good enough, and it's not just the case of we've won a couple of games, or we've played okay. You know, we played okay in the finals. We got top 4 last season. You know, we've won a Club World Cup. We've won the Champions League with Thomas Tuchel, the Super Cup as well. You know, all those kind of accolades that you would expect from that kind of manager. He's still a world-class manager or a top-class manager, so you expect him to be doing that, but for me, it's some of the off-field stuff. It's some of the tactical decisions, you know, the substitutions that we're seeing. The fact that he's playing Mason Mount in midfield when you've got a player that you've just signed on deadline day, Zakaria, who can play in that position. We've just sold Billy Gilmore for £9 million, who can play in that position, but we've got Mason Mount. Not singling out Mason Mount, but I'm going to get on to last night's game and definitely talk about Mason Mount and some of the other players. But some of those decisions, I think back to the Everton game, opening game of the season, we just signed Marc Cucurella on the Friday. We rushed it through. He travelled to Everton and he doesn't start the game, which is understandable. But when we make subs in the second half, Reece James goes to left wing back. He goes to the left side. We have Marc Cucurella on the bench. We've just signed him £60+ million and he's on the bench, you know. And I think Ruben Loftus-Cheek playing at right wing back at times as well. Yes, it worked. It was effective, but you do have to question some of the decisions that Thomas Tuchel made at the club. And, you know, I always said performances are what Thomas Tuchel needs to deliver, and Todd Boehly has to deliver some players into the team. And I feel like Todd Boehly's held up his half of the bargain, whether they're Thomas Tuchel signings or Todd Boehly signings. He's done what he needed to do. Whether he got the right players in, or, you know, we missed out on, you know, Delete or Rafinha. It just doesn't, you know, it just doesn't. I mean, some of the signings that we were going for, Nathan Ake for 50 million, you know, those kind of deals just didn't make any sense to me. And again, you need to ask yourself the question as a Chelsea fan, who wanted him for 50 million? You know, Todd Boehly was adamant he wasn't going to go above 50 million for Nathan Ake. So it kind of tells you that that potentially was a Thomas Tuchel decision to try and get Nathan Ake, potentially watching him in the Premier League as his time as Chelsea manager. He probably thought it was a good fit for Chelsea as well. But you do have to, on the other hand, feel very sorry for Thomas Tuchel, because, like I said, you think back to the end of last season, sanctions, the Lukaku situation, coming into this season with still a bit of that uncertainty until some time in the summer when Todd Boehly was officially announced as the owner and the sanctions were lifted. Then you miss out on key targets, and you don't have the best of pre-seasons. You lose 2 of your key players in Rudiger, Christensen as well, and you do have to look at that side of things. But we've replaced some of those players, so Todd's done his job. He's brought in the players that he needed to bring in my opinion, and I just struggle to understand how some people don't get how Chelsea operates. Chelsea's been operating in this way for 10 years plus. Under Roman Abramovich, it was the same thing. Roman used to turn up to the training ground if we had a bad result to talk to the manager. Like, these things have been happening at the club. Roberto Di Matteo got sacked after winning the Champions League. Like, this is the model, the process that Chelsea have been following for many years. And before last night's game, there was many people on the Twitter feeds and Instagrams and YouTube and everywhere else. Fans were calling for Thomas Tuchel. I seen it with my own eyes. So to wake up this morning and see a sudden shock of fans, and I can't believe it. And some of your big YouTubers that you guys watch as well, you know, in shock that he's been sacked. I mean, they were the ones calling for his head as well. So I don't understand the shock value to it, and the fact that people are shocked that he's gone. For me personally, it's the right call. I think when you lose the dressing room, which it looked like he did, you go back to the Dinamo Zagreb game yesterday, there was just nothing. There was nothing at all. There was nothing. I think we need to start by saying congratulations to Zagreb, Dinamo Zagreb. Played brilliantly. You know, 5-4-1 formation worked for them. If you look back to the game, out of possession, how quick and how they resort back to their shape. Everyone's behind the ball. Everyone's got a role to play. Everyone defensively, and it forces Chelsea out to the wide areas, which just didn't work. We pass side by side, back to the goalkeeper, back to the defenders, and they just blocked off every bit of space that we could potentially have used, and they've done that really well. And I think going into that game, you saw the naivety of Thomas Tuchel. Maybe some of the players as well taking it as almost as a pre-season game by the looks of it, and you know it's just Dinamo Zagreb, but they're the champions of Croatia for a reason, and you know they're a team that again have done. I think played West Ham, played Tottenham, played them really well, done well against them as well. So we knew that going into the game, alongside Jorginho, Kovacic, alongside Kovacic. Why would you have a player who isn't naturally in that position alongside Kovacic? It doesn't make any sense. You got Zakaria on the bench. Just use him. Whether that's a stubbornness from Thomas Tuchel, whether it's just he didn't want to sign the player and it's maybe Todd Boehly bringing in a midfielder and he's just not happy to play him, we'll never know. But it's weird to me. You know, at one point aheemSterling was playing in midfield. He was playing in midfield. I can't understand for the life of me why you would play a player who is an attacking wide, can play across the whole of the front three in midfield. I don't understand it. I really don't. And these are the things where Todd Boehly's probably scratching his head and thinking, what is this guy doing? Because we have the players. We've just given you £300 million worth of players. Whether you want to use them, whether you wanted them at the club, whether you agreed with the players that we brought in, you've got to use them because your job's on the line. Your job's on the line. Broja, another player. Why are we still playing Kai Havertz? Hakim Ziyech came on and done nothing yesterday. Like these players have, again, not to try and single out any of the players, but they threw him under the bus, Thomas Tuchel, yesterday, because that performance was dire, poor, awful performance from the players yesterday. I mean, you couldn't even give out a standout player yesterday. There was none. Not even Reece James. And the free kicks from Hakim Ziyech. I mean, look, you took the first one and you failed. You can't step up for another one, and then there's just no structure to the club at the moment, and you can tell that messiness that clearly is in the dressing room. You know, there's talks of the players talking about Thomas Tuchel's marriage breakup and his new partner, and all of these things in the dressing room, on the training ground. There's obviously fractions. Todd Boehly's come out now, looks like, and said that he wasn't happy with the way that Thomas Tuchel dealt with some of the youth players. So you look at Billy Gilmore, you look at Callum Hudson-Odoi, you look at Ruben Loftus-Cheek, you know, all these, even Trevor Chalobah. Why was Trevor Chalobah not on the pitch yesterday instead of Azpilicueta? I just don't understand. I can't get my head around it. A player that can offer you more. He can offer you more in defence than, and I hate saying this, but Azpilicueta is finished. He's finished as a defender. He can't defend. He's too slow. He's always out of position. You know, we play a high line. We get caught out. We got to see that yesterday with Zagreb. Brilliant goal on the counter attack. That high line killed us. And when you've got someone like Wesley Fofana, who should be dealing with that goal a lot better, in my opinion. But when you've got someone who is learning his trade off Thiago Silva or Koulibaly, who didn't have the best of games again, another red flag for his performances. But when you've got a player or two players who should be teaching Wesley Fofana and Trevor Chalobah, that clearly isn't happening on the training ground, because it's not coming. If it is, then it's not coming out onto these performances. We're not seeing it. And I just can't get my head around the fact that, you know, we're seeing the same team come out, the same lineup, the same tactics, no plan B, back five, two in midfield. It's not working. It's not working anymore. We tried it. It hasn't worked. It worked for a while. The system doesn't work. But you have to honestly ask yourself, I mean, I've been on Twitter this morning. I've seen a lot of what people have said, and it reminds me of spoiled Chelsea fans. We're in an era where we have spoiled Chelsea fans who call for the manager to be sacked. The manager gets sacked, then they cry that the manager's been sacked. I don't get it. You either want him sacked or you want him in the club. You either back him or you don't back him. Back him or sack him. It's as simple as that. And I think, you know, we're in an era where people, you know, Twitter spaces and all of these other things, and that's great, but we have to be honest. And let's look at some of the facts, or try and dissect some of the facts. You know, the signings, people are saying, you know, why spend 300 million to sack him? Well, here's a curveball for those who might think that Todd Boehly just gave Thomas Tuchel 300 million and said, here you go and buy what you want. Clearly, at the very start of Todd Boehly taking over Chelsea, one of the first things he did was get rid of Marina Granovskaya. Bruce Buck. Petr Cech left on his own accord. He then said, we will get a director of football when we're ready to do so. We're looking into that. We're going to get someone in. In the meantime, I, as the chairman and the owner of this club, will step into that role on a temporary basis with the assistance of Thomas Tuchel. So Todd Boehly, the owner, has most right and the final say on every player, because Thomas Tuchel could want Mbappe, Neymar, Messi, Ronaldo, you name it, Haaland. He could want all of them. But if Todd Boehly's not willing to sanction those transfers, it doesn't mean anything. So my point that I'm trying to prove, Todd Boehly more than likely wanted majority of the signings that we currently have in the squad. It's as simple as that. Because I'm telling you from now, in any business, whether it's small, whether it's a big multi-million-pound company or club that we are, billion-pound club that we are, you don't just make a knee-jerk reaction after one game. These conversations of sacking Thomas Tuchel or Thomas Tuchel walking away from his role have not just come out of a 24-hour conversation or a 24-hour period. These have probably been on the cards since pre-season. They've been on the cards for so long, we're just not privy to the conversation. So my thought would be Thomas Tuchel had a period of time to prove what he can do with the players that Todd Boehly brings into the club with the help of Thomas Tuchel. The two signings I think potentially would be 100% Thomas Tuchel is Koulibaly and Patrick Aubameyang. Simple. Because like I said, Todd Boehly was meeting on more than one occasion with Ronaldo's agent to bring him to the club, and Thomas Tuchel said, no, thank you, I don't want Ronaldo at the club. He then had to explain himself to Todd Boehly. So my thought would be Todd Boehly has brought in these Premier League proven players, Cucurella, aheemSterling, to name the two, Wesley Fofana, another one, Chukwuemeka, who's played for Aston Villa at a Premier League level. He's brought these players in because whoever comes in after Thomas Tuchel will be able to play with them. You won't have the issue of trying to get them to adapt to the Premier League. They're already proven in the Premier League. They've played in multiple games for their other clubs prior to moving to Chelsea. So my opinion is Thomas Tuchel, yes, had a say in the signings, but I can guarantee you Todd Boehly, in the back of his mind, would have had, when he took on the club, this is my project, this is my plans, this is how we're going to deliver this, and this is the timescale it's going to take. It's as simple as that. Anyone in project management will know that that is how it works. You don't just wake up from a 1-0 defeat to Dinamo Zagreb and ring and say, I want to see you, and sack you on the spot. And Thomas Tuchel didn't need to leave the role. Because where does Thomas Tuchel go from here now? Where does he go? Yes, he'll get a compensation package, and his coaching staff will get a compensation package, but where does he go from here? He's just brought a house here. It's cost him his marriage. So I can probably assure you that he doesn't want to just leave the club. But there's obviously been a conversation this morning where things have got to a point where they could no longer go on. Now, if people are shocked at that, then they clearly haven't supported Chelsea over the last 10 years, because as you can go down all the list of managers that we've had, some that we had to bring back because we've got through that many managers, you'll see that this is the same system that Roman Abramovich had. 6 games, is it too short? 100%. Because you can't expect Thomas Tuchel to magic things in 6 games, because there's so much mess and transition in that squad. So many players have left. It needs time, but at the same time as well, I can 100% assure you that Todd Boehly would have already probably, maybe, I don't know, after Everton game, would have started discussions and said, right, we need to get a list of managers together. Who do we want to bring in? Should we need to sack Thomas Tuchel? The contingency plan is go after Graham Potter, go after Zinedine Zidane, go after Maurizio Pochettino. One of those three would have been on the list, a short list somewhere, and they would have potentially made inquiries. I mean, you're looking now. I mean, when this video comes out, we may even have Potter in charge by now. But the pace that they're moving to try and get Graham Potter tells me that it's not a knee-jerk reaction to sack Thomas Tuchel, because you're already seeing plans are in place to replace him. So it's a no-brainer. Even bringing in Torreira, selling Billy Gilmore for 9 million. I mean, these kind of things I mean, you got to read between the lines when you come to project management and that management, the off-field stuff. It's not just the football manager FIFA thing where you can just go and sign someone and sack someone and get someone in and do this and that. You can't. It doesn't work. This is his business where he's pumped 300 plus more billions into it. So I can assure you, it's not just something's happened and Thomas Tuchel's not happy and blah blah. No, it's a plan and it's a process. And normally when something like this happens, a new owner wants to bring in his own regime. He wants to bring in someone that he can work alongside with, which is probably why we haven't brought in a director of football, because the director of football has to be able to work with the manager. And the reason they haven't brought the director of football in is because they knew they weren't going to keep Thomas Tuchel. So we have to read between the lines in these kind of things. And yes, it's a shame, 100%. He's a brilliant manager. We think back to Porto. We think back to the Club World Cup. We think back to the Super Cup. We think back to those times when we had, 3 outfield players and 2 goalkeepers against Wolverhampton Wanderers in a COVID-stricken match. And our game was still had to go ahead when others were getting postponed. We have to think about those times with Thomas Tuchel, of course. But at the same time as well, the results is all what we care about at the end of the season. We don't care about anything in between it. We care about, are we going to be in the top 4? Are we going to be in the final for the FA Cup? Are we going to be trying to compete for the Champions League? That's all we care about as fans. Let's be honest. We don't care about, if we go on now and we win 2 trophies and we get top 4 and then we have a brilliant summer transfer window, I can guarantee you no one's even going to care about Thomas Tuchel as much as they do today. So it's just the harsh reality of being in a football environment. Players come and go, managers come and go. It's as simple as that. And I think the bottom line is, were the performances really that good? No, they weren't. Did we all complain and say that something needs to change? Yes, we did. And something has changed. Is it for the better? I don't know. But I do think, Graham Potter, which I think is the one that the Athletic is sort of saying that we're going for, I think it's a good shout. I think he's a good manager. I think he's someone that will, hopefully, if we get him, come in and do a good job, transition the team. It needs that. It needs someone to steady the ship. And ideally, I thought that was Thomas Tuchel, but clearly something has gone wrong over there with him and the owner. But this is a time for change. And when you rot out all the players, I mean, we haven't even spoke about all the players that Todd Bowley got rid of, and I'm talking the Ross Barkleys, where he's just paid them up. He hasn't bothered to loan them out. He hasn't tried to use them in any other way. He's just basically said, right, get out the club, go and find yourself your own club. Here's your money and go. And he's done that. And you think about all the players that we had on our books. Now, if Thomas Tuchel was there, I can guarantee you some of those players might actually still be there. Still. If Marina Granovskaya was still here, some of those players might actually be here. So when new owners come in, when there's a restructure at the top of the club, 9 out of 10 times, everyone below that leaves because he wants to bring in his own people, his own plans. He wants to appoint his own manager because he believes that there's a better manager out there that can do the job that he needs him to do. It's just business. So I get the closeness to Thomas Tuchel. I think a lot of people said he was their favourite Chelsea manager, some of the younger Chelsea fans. But in my opinion, when you don't perform on the pitch, it's not the players that we criticise to the very end. It's the manager that's job's on the line. The players' jobs are not on the line. It's just the manager. And they haven't performed. They really haven't. The only game we can honestly say we performed in and gave ourselves a really good show of ourselves was Tottenham. And we didn't even win the game. Based on VAR or whatever, but we still didn't win the game. We still had chances before it was 2-2 to kill the game, and we never done that, and that's one of the things we never done. Graham Potter, not the answer for me long term. Short term, transitional, get the players working right, get the team right. And one of the things that I want to say as well is that the team that we have now, we play very similar to to Brighton. We play very similar. Very, very similar. And I think Graham Potter needs that step up. He needs a challenge. You know, he's done so much with Brighton. Brighton aren't going to stand in his way. They've allowed him to talk to us if we approach him. And it's a case of paying, I think, 16 million in terms of a release from his contract at Brighton. I mean, look, if you've done the hard part of sacking, you know, a manager that's loved by the fans, 16 million from a billionaire is probably a couple of pounds in a spare bank account somewhere. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, we've got Fulham Saturday, massive game. Very strange time to sack the manager in between these games. Potentially could have waited till the international break, but clearly Todd Bowley didn't want to wait that long. So, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think. Give us a like. Subscribe to the channel. The subscribers have stopped. It's still at 300 and something, but let's try and get to 350, 400 if we can before the end of this week. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll be back with another video and also another podcast. I feel like we've neglected our podcast, but Theo has been away. He's flying back as we speak right now. There'll be a podcast episode. Hopefully by the end of the week, we'll discuss Thomas Tuchel, Graham Potter, Fulham, the start to the season, all of that stuff in our next episode as well. So stay locked in for that one, and make sure you've got the notification bell, and you'll get the message as soon as the video is out. Thank you very much for watching. As I said before, subscribe to the channel. Stay safe.